Hello and welcome to part 7 of the realistic Micky head tutorial. When last I left you, I had done the teeth on the inside of the mouth, so turn off that mirror so you can see where those are. So now we'll get in and see this little tab here. That's actually the beginnings of the inside of the mouth. We'll go ahead and expand that out. Oh, my mouse has got the... there we go. Computer's bogging down something. Anyways, that's the actual start of the mouth, so we'll go ahead and expand that out and get the rest of the inside of the mouth done. So that shouldn't take too long. So that being said, go ahead and leave the mirror turned off for now. Tab into edit mode. And let's select the inside of the mouth. Let's go ahead and hide the teeth for now. So we'll just select some of those vertices, Control L. I guess I need to actually select. Tell you what, let's do. Let's select one of the vertices on the head itself and hit Shift H, and that will hide what's not selected. In this case, it is the teeth. So let's grab these and make sure that this is oriented the way it should be. I remember in when I did Johnny Blender Part 2, I got the inside of the mouth inside out and had to fix that, and it was just a pain. So looks like everything's copacetic this time. So we'll just continue with the inside of the mouth there. So we got those 3 rows coming in there, and that's looks like hit the 5 button, so we're in actual perspective view. Yes, I think that's the rest. I was gonna see if I still need to select this or not, but I don't think I do. So we'll just go with these 3 faces here. Control 3, so we're on the correct side. Go ahead and hit 5 back to orthographic. And let's scale that up. Let's go ahead and turn off proportional editing. Scale that up. This will be the inside of the lips, so we'll make sure we actually, let's scale that, curve it back a little bit. This will be the part of the lips that are actually the closest, Control 3, actually closest to the teeth. So let's go ahead and move that forward. You can see this here is the shape of the lip. So we'll need to go and add a loop in here once we get it all situated, but for now, it should be fine. Let's go ahead and extrude back. And since we have our mirror turned off, even though it's still on as far as the render settings go, we have it turned off in the viewport, so it's adding that divider. So it's like we did when we were working on the nostrils. We'll have to come back in and delete that though. So we'll extrude back again, and this will be the back of the mouth. Let's go ahead and bend that down a little bit. Grab this loop here, scale that on the Z-axis a little bit, make it a little taller. And this will be the roof of the mouth and things. So let's grab these vertices here and let's flatten those out. SZ0, just to flatten it out. And we'll kind of rotate it on the Y-axis to kind of round it back out. Don't want it to be perfectly flat. So now we'll come in here and start shaping the inside of the mouth. Now, it needs to, we're pretending like, well, let's go ahead and just get rid of them, I guess. Get rid of these guys, those faces. Okay, so this is, you can see if we had this turned back on, that's the cavity of the mouth. It's a lot easier to work with it turned off there. So let's make it a little bigger. And then obviously, once we get it kind of in the blocked out in the shape we want, we will turn the teeth back on and kind of model it around the teeth so we can actually fit them in the mouth nicely without having the intersections of the mesh. Okay, so now we'll add a couple of loops in here. Like I said, I need to add one right in here. Control 3. So it's rounded off a little bit more for the teeth. So Alt S, scale that down a little. There we go. Maybe this loop here, scale that up a tad bit. And this loop here, scale that up some. And this loop, scale that up some. Maybe not scale up so much, just kind of move it. And then just grab these vertices here, drag those down. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the tongue in. We'll select these guys back here. And go ahead and, I keep going to the wrong side. Extrude that out, just back the opposite way. Scale it down. And we'll extrude one more time. Let's go ahead and drag it all the way up to the front. Gonna rotate that, and let's go ahead and delete these side faces that it added there, and then we can start rounding the tip of the tongue off. these edges here, move those back, move these forward, and then move these back a little as well. Okay, so now we can add a couple of loops in here so the tongue will have more space to be flexible without skewing the mesh too much. And let's make the tip of it a little smaller, like so. And then maybe have a little crease in the middle of it. Just move that down. You're only working with half, so you got to kind of envision what this half is going to look like. You could turn it on, but you won't be able to see it, so we'll just kind of envision it. So we'll just move these guys a little closer and taller. So we have that nice indentation here in the center of the tongue. And that's probably okay. Tell you what I'm going to do right now is, in order to map this nicely, texture map it, I'm going to separate the tongue from the inside of the mouth. So we'll select that loop there, and I'm going to hit Control E, and it's going to bring up the edge menu, and we say mark the seam. So it's now this tongue is cut off, but we need to split it down the middle along the bottom so it'll unfold nicely, and we can actually put a nice texture map on it a little easier that way. So we'll go Control E, mark the seam there. And another benefit to adding seams, aside from texture mapping, is it enables you to separate the mesh into separate parts a little easier. So now we have the tongue kind of by itself. We can select the face select and just select any other part of the model besides the tongue, just inside of the cheek there or even the outside mesh. Control L, and it'll select everything except for the tongue. It'll select up into the edge of the seam. In this case, it's there around the back of the tongue. Now it only works in edge select mode, face select mode. So if you're in vertex select, it'll still select everything. And I believe edge select will also select everything. Yeah, so it only works in face select. So you got to make sure if you're wanting to do this, you do that. So one thing that's handy for is you can go ahead and hide that and go ahead and turn mirror back on. You can see now we really have some problems with the tongue. So we need to select it, and let's tell you what, let's turn that back off for now. Alt H, and let's go to our front view, and you can see that we started coming outside the center area when we were extruding in the inside of the mouth. So let's just select all those, make sure we have this turned on a little bit so we don't get too skinny. We'll just start moving those and deselect that part. We only want this center row selected. We'll scale that on the x-axis so we can flatten it out. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to add another seam around the inside of the lips. Probably not this row, but the next one down, that one there. Control E. Actually, you know what? That first row select is probably the best one. So we'll Control E, mark the seam there, and then do the same thing we were doing. We'll select the face, Control L, and hide that. And now I'd also like to go ahead and hide the teeth and gums again. So I'm going to go to Vertex Select, select part of the inside of the mouth there, Shift H, hide what's not selected. So now we can see the inside of the mouth quite a bit easier. And then we can modify it. Let's go ahead and turn this off. Modify that because we don't want these vertices that close together. So remember, the closer they are together, the more of a seam they'll make. So we just want a gradual seam here across the tongue, not a real sharp one. And then also the tip of the tongue needs to be a little more rounded. Drag those up. And probably looking okay. This looks like it's a little too high there. Raise this up. And that's probably about right. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and add just a tiny bit more detail to the inside of the mouth. We'll just add a slight bit like it's going to go down the back of his throat. We're not going to do the whole throat, but if he opens his mouth real wide, we don't want it to look, just bald in there. So we'll just start going down the back. And of course, get rid of that divider there. And of course, if we go to front view, we need to select this whole loop here edge select, or vertex select, SX0, so it flattens it out completely. And that's probably good to go. If you want to go ahead and create a uvula, just select this edge. Just go ahead and add a loop right in here. We'll select this guy here, and let's go ahead and move that down in that one. Rotate him a little. So this will be the little hangy ball. The medical term, hangy ball. It's actually called a uvula. The little thing in the back of your mouth, back of your throat. Let's have that come down like so. Then get rid of the center parts. There, center faces. And round it off a bit. Actually, just select these sides. Okay, so if we turn that back on, hit the 5 button so we can actually go through the mesh. And we can see it's a little too far to the side, so let's turn that back off. And let's scale everything. Let's put our 3D cursor in the center of the scene, cursor to center. And now if we SX0, should have flattened it out a little better. Turn that back on. Looks like everything is not quite centered up, so we'll just select that and just move everything. Actually, let's unhide everything. Just select the whole center. And then make sure we SX0 on that. Drag it to the center until it glues itself together. So there we go. So now if I turn that off, actually turn it back on and then tab into edit mode and select the face. Hide that. We can look in here and say, okay, looks like it's all set. So now what we need to do is modify the inside of the mouth so it fits around the teeth. So let's just select all of it there. Control L, skip to vertex select mode. And then I don't want to select the row here because that's the row that's actually attached to the head mesh. So I'm going to hit the Control minus and we'll deselect that. And now, if I scale it up, we can start seeing it come around the teeth. Let's do it on the Z-axis first. And then on the X-axis. There we go. And we're going to have to move the teeth back a little bit because you can see they're coming through the mesh where the lips are going to be. So let's go ahead and unhide everything. And it's not that big of an issue, but I would like to go ahead and hide that. Actually, I don't want to hide it. I just want to select the inverse. So Control I and just move that back a little bit. Okay. So now we have the inside of the mouth, the tongue, and everything all set. Okay. So now we're pretty well done with the modeling part. There's one other thing I want to do, and that's for when we go to add hair to this guy. It's easiest if he actually has a different piece of mesh for just the hair, and it's going to be the scalp. So I'm going to select, tell you what, let's do. Let's turn on the background images and try to select just the faces that actually has hair under them. So about like so. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. We can smooth it out as we need to later. Oops, got that part of the ear there. Okay, and then the sideburns, about like so. And then here and up in here. Let's just select that whole area there. Maybe that. Okay, so this will be the scalp. So what we're going to do is go Shift D, duplicate just that piece of mesh. So it'll be just like that. And now we can hit W. Let's just select the edge of it. Actually, let's select part of it and hide everything else. Okay. And then we can select just the edge. There. And hit W smooth. And it's a little bit too much because we have our repeat still set to 5 over here. So let's dumb that down a bit. And now we can just select this and kind of just turn on our proportional editing connected. Kind of just set this along where his hairline is. Go ahead and go to wireframe view, it'd be a little easier. Okay, and I think when I hit smooth on here, it okay, no, I was worried it separated from the center, but I guess it kept that the mirror on there. So let's go to our rear view and give him just a little bit sharpness there. Okay, so we kind of want it to be inside the rest of the head mesh, so let's select it all, scale it down ever so slightly. And so you can't really see it. Okay, so that's good to go. One thing I want to do while I still have it selected is we'll come into the object data, or just the data tab, and create a vertex group, and we're going to call it, double click on there, call this one Scalp. Okay, and assign those vertices to that. So now those are part of that. Okay, so now we have the inside of the mesh done, pretty much all of the modeling on the head. And like I said earlier, the head is going to be a separate piece from the rest of it. So that's basically, if you're only going to follow this bust type of tutorial set, this is pretty much all the modeling we're going to have to do. So now we need to start working on the textures. So what I want to do is go ahead and unhide everything. And actually I want to hide the scalp now because we don't really need to texture map it. So we'll just hide it, get it out of the way. And if we look at image after, go back to here, and actually it was 3DSK. Load. A lot of people use this type of layout for a head texture. It'll go to it, but that's all one piece, and I don't really like it myself. I think it kind of stretches out the detail. I mean, who am I to question this professional website? But I use a different technique a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to cut the front and the back of the head into two separate pieces right along the ear line. So we'll just select these guys here. Maybe we'll come around to there and select this loop there. So that's going to be Control E, mark the seam there. And I'm going to come down the middle of the head a little bit along the back of it as well. Control E, mark that there. And then the ear itself is going to be completely separated. I can select the right pieces of it. There. And there. Oops, Control E. Mark, not mark sharp, mark seam. There we go. Okay, so if I go over here to the, see some of these are cutting off when you zoom in and things like that. You can turn off the subdivision surface, and it'll give you a better view of what it's going to look like. So right now the ear is actually cut into two pieces, which I would rather have it one piece. So let's select around the back of the ear. There, Control E, and mark that. And then, let's unmark this part along the top. So we'll unmark that, Control E, clear seam. Okay, so now the rest of it is pretty well good to go. We've already marked inside the lips area for the separate the face from the inside of the mouth. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and select the front of the face, go ahead and hide that. And there's one more, actually two more things I need to do. Well, three, I guess, technically. On the gums, I want to add, tell you what, let's go ahead and hide the rest of the outside of the head as well. Hide that. Okay, on the gums, I want to go ahead and add a seam just along the back side there. And there. Go ahead and mark that. So those lay a little flatter. So they'll look a little nicer. So select the inside of the mouth. Looks like we can actually modify this a bit. The cheeks don't need to go out that far, so we'll just select cheeks, bring those in, and then select the right piece there, and there. These cheeks need to come out a little bit further. There we go. Okay, so now I'll Control L and Shift H to hide everything else. Now, if these were to be unwrapped, they would lay very odd because it's like a tube shape. So we need to separate this. And it's actually got almost some overlapping geometry right there. We don't need that, so let's move that. Turn off clipping so we can actually move it, and turn off proportional editing. So move that out so it's not overlapping. It's not overlapping on the uvula, so let's just deselect everywhere that it is, or select everything that it is. Blah, blah, blah. Deselect where it's not. There we go. If it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. So let's move those out. There we go. And that'll work. Okay, so now it would unwrap this very oddly. So I'm going to add, just like on the tongue, add a seam along the bottom of it. Control E, mark the seam. So that way it'll unwrap it and be flatter, and it'll look a lot nicer. So I'm going to Alt H, unhide everything. And like I said, our modeling is pretty well done. We'll have to do some adjustments to the eyeballs themselves. And then obviously we'll do some shape keys once we get the texture mapping all set. But the main modeling is all done. And we got the UV coordinates on there. So that's going to be it for part 7. Go ahead and save this. Boom. And in part 8, we'll actually start the actual texture mapping itself. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in part 8.